Hey everyone, sorry for the hiatus, I've been away, but I'm going to try and make that up this week by doing two videos this week. The first of which I'll be talking about my 10 favourite plot twists in movies. Now, I did this video probably about 18 months ago now, and while I don't disagree with most of my takes on that list, there are some that I would probably leave out. Like, they're still good, but I just wanted to do it again because I feel like I was a little bit too broad on it. And what I mean by that is that for this video, I'm going to be only talking about twists that I was shocked by, ones that I didn't have spoiled. No matter how great they are, movies like The Others, The Sixth Sense, Old Boy, they're not going to be on the list because I knew them going in, and that's not, it didn't garner the exact reaction from me. And despite the fact that they're great twists, these ones are the ones that blew my mind and really made me go, holy shit. And I think that's also a good idea too, because it'll narrow my list down a little bit and have some ones that you may not see people talk about nearly as often as you see people talk about movies like The Sixth Sense and stuff like that. But without further ado, let's just get into the list. Coming in at number 10 for me, we have a movie called Primal Fear. This is an excellent courtroom drama starring Richard Gere and Edward Norton, and it surrounds a high-powered attorney named Martin Vale, and he hears that an altar boy named Aaron Stampler has been accused of murdering the local archbishop. Little does he know he's about to be thrown into a giant pit of corruption and deception. Now, the first twist in this film comes around about a little bit before halfway through, and it's revealed that although Aaron technically is innocent, he's developed a split personality from abuse from his father and sexual abuse from the archbishop. And it's that split personality that killed the bishop. The problem is that Richard Gere's character, Martin Vale, has already pled not guilty and he can't change it to insanity. So he's going to have to figure out a way to somehow get Aaron Stampler off, even though he has technically committed the crime and he's already pled not guilty and he's facing the death penalty. Aaron's split personality, Roy, comes out in the courtroom. He attacks a bunch of people and he just goes absolutely ballistic. And once the court case is done and the judge overrules the not guilty plea to insanity, Aaron is free. He's basically, he's going to go to a mental hospital for a little while, but he'll get off scot-free. But then Aaron reveals to Martin Vale that he doesn't actually have a split personality. He was faking the disorder the entire time so that he could manipulate Martin and the rest of the courtroom into believing that he was insane and he could get away with murdering the archbishop scot-free. Which is just such a genius reveal, because you watch it at first, and the opening scene, you see someone stabbing the archbishop a bunch of times, gouging out his eyes, and then you see Aaron just running from it, covered in blood, left his footprints everywhere. Clear as day that he obviously did it. But for the whole film, you're like, I don't reckon he actually did do it. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh, yeah, he did do it. But instead of coming up with an elaborate murder scheme, he just went in and did it and manipulated the courtroom and his attorney into believing that he was insane, and it ended up working and he ended up getting off scot-free. It's just the kind of thing that you re-watch it and you think of it as not so much a attorney trying to prove someone's innocence, but a guilty man manipulating and forcing everyone to believe that he's insane so that he can get off with the crime. It's just a crazy twist that really changes the movie, and I absolutely love it. Coming in at number 9 for me is one of my favourite movies of all time, and that is the Suspiria remake, directed by Luca Guadagnino. This film surrounds an American dancer named Susie Banyan, who arrives in Germany to be a dancer at the Dance Academy, before realising that the place might be inhabited and run by two different covens of witches. So it's just all this fucked up crazy shit going on. Susie's in the midst of it, like wondering what the hell's going on. And you get to the end of it, and Susie reveals that she is the mother witch that both of these covens worship. And she came in disguise in order to basically eradicate one of the covens for being bad witches, as they've potentially risked public exposure and stuff like that. And this whole time, Susie was coming in as disguise so that she could come in and get rid of the corrupt coven of witches, and she lets the other coven go free. She brings up a literal incarnation of death to fucking mutilate and just disembowel and dismember all the evil witches, and it's just this crazy fucked up finale where you're just watching it and you're like, holy shit, what? As much as I love the original, I probably still like the original a little bit more, but this one just puts a crazy unique spin on it and makes it absolutely worth your time. Coming in at number 8 on my list, we have the original Wicker Man. In this film, a detective is called out to a remote island off the shores of Scotland, I think it might be, and he's seeking the disappearance of a missing girl before realizing that she may have been kidnapped to be burnt alive in a ritual sacrifice. And then you get to the end of the film and you realize that the detective is the real person that this cult ritual fuckers are actually trying to kill and sacrifice for their plants. And the missing girl was just used as bait to get him out to the island. He is then trapped and burnt alive in a giant Wicker Man statue, crying out for his god to have mercy on him, while the paganists or cultists or whatever you call them sing and chant to their own lord. This is just such a dark twist, and it never cheats. It makes sense the entire time. And although it's not like, the kind of jaw-dropping reveal, it's inevitable the entire time, but that just makes the kind of dread of what's going to happen just so much bigger. And then when you actually get to him screaming as he's carried and burnt alive, it's just one of the most shocking and jaw-dropping endings in movie history. Coming in at number 7 on my list, we have Seven. A soon-to-be retired detective is paired with a hot-headed rookie named David Mills to try and capture a murderer who is killing and maiming people based off of the 7 deadly sins. When the killer, only known as John Doe in this film, seemingly turns himself in, he's only captured 5 of the 7 deadly sins. He then tells the 2 detectives that he's going to take them out to a remote place in the desert to show them the last 2 sinners. Once they get out to the desert, John reveals that he himself has actually committed the sin of envy by murdering David's wife in envy of their happy and normal existence. And then that murder of David's wife ignites David to carry out the sin of wrath by shooting John Doe, rounding out the 7 deadly sin killings. It's just insane because the whole time you're like, what are these last 2 victims? There's got to be more than just bodies. And then you learn that one of our protagonists is one of the victims, and the killer himself is one of the victims of his own killing spree. It's just dark and just disturbing, and when Morgan Freeman opens the box and sees her head, you never see the head. That's one of the most genius just kind of examples of less is more, and you just see his reaction. He's like, oh shit. It's just such a great reveal. It's such a great ending. It just leaves you with just your jaw on the floor again. Your stomach is in knots. It's just gut-wrenching, and it's just so bleak and depressing and depraved and shocking, and is just one of the best twists in movie history and one of the most iconic. Coming in at number 6 on my list, we have my personal favourite Alfred Hitchcock film, and that is Vertigo. Scotty, a retired detective, unofficially returns to the job to watch an old friend's wife named Madeline Elster on account of some strange behaviour. Scotty becomes obsessed with her as he follows her around, but then Madeline kills herself. And then you get probably about half an hour from the end, and you learn that Madeline didn't kill herself because she's not really Madeline. Her name is actually Judy Barton. The real Madeline was murdered by Gavin, who is Scotty's friend that approached him, in order for him to inherit her wealthy background. Judy Barton was a lookalike of the real Madeline and was paid by Gavin to play as Madeline so that Scotty could be used as a witness to Madeline's suicide, so Gavin could never be ever suspected of murder. The entire movie is just one big murder scheme, and it's just trippy and weird, and it just goes just round and round in circles, just into insanity. And this reveal it's so evil of Gavin to use Scotty as a pawn like that. And it's just such a great reveal because you pick up everything on the rewatch and you realize that when Madeline jumped off the building, it was actually Gavin throwing his already dead wife's body off, and he had them all dressed up the same. This movie is amazing. It is just wacky and crazy to the maximum, and has one of the most genius reveals ever. Because it's not like a singular moment when you're like, oh my god. It's just like a constantly throughout the last half an hour, you're just piecing everything together, and you're just like, Coming in at number 5 on my list, we have a little-known movie called Frailty, directed by the great late Bill Paxton. Or late great. One of the two, whatever the saying is. And it is about a man named Fenton Meeks confessing to an FBI agent about his family story of how his dad was sent out on a mission by God to destroy demons disguised as humans. These killings are a mystery to the public and are labelled the God's Hand killings. Fenton didn't believe his dad, but his younger brother, Adam, did and helped with the demon destroying. And the whole movie is just basically like this kind of like whole mystery is like, is the dad crazy or is God literally come down and told him to destroy demons disguised as people? And it's just really, really chilling and really creepy. And then you get to the end and Fenton tells the FBI agent that he's not actually Fenton, but he's Adam, the one that believed his dad the entire time. Adam just posed as Fenton to pretend that he was confessing his family's crime. But in actuality, Adam is here to destroy the FBI agent who is hunting down whoever the God's Hand killer is, because the FBI agent himself is actually a demon who murdered his own mother and is trying to stop the killings so that he doesn't get destroyed by the God's Hand killer. And on top of all of that, Adam actually is on a mission from God, as nobody can figure out who the God's Hand killer is. He constantly says that God will protect me, and you're kind of thinking he's just crazy. But then the other detectives in the FBI department, they don't remember what Adam looks like. They have no recollection of his face. All security camera footage goes staticky whenever Adam's on screen. So the entire time, his dad was right. They were sent on a mission by God to destroy demons disguised as humans. It just throws a million different loops at you that never ever comes off as being too hard to juggle, and it never becomes convoluted. It just makes everything, just in retrospect, so much more mind-blowing and just makes you want to watch the movie again and again. I highly recommend checking out Frailty. This movie is incredible. Coming in at number 4 on my list, we have a movie that I just love to absolute death. It's a film by Christopher Nolan, who isn't my all-time favourite director or anything like that, but his good movies are fucking great. And at number 4, we have The Prestige. This movie is about two fellow magicians who are sent into a long rivalry after a fatal accident. One, Alfred Borden, has mastered the teleporting man trick, where he appears to teleport from one side of the stage to another in a split second. While the other, Robert Angier, sacrifices almost everything in his life to discover how this trick is pulled off and try one-up Alfred. And then, after all this hardship, all this heartbreak, the people dying, him just spending so much money to have a cloning machine made by David Bowie's character Nikola Tesla, Alfred reveals that the entire time, he's an identical twin. One twin would be on one side and go through the door, the other twin would come out on the other side. It's the simplest and most obvious answer, and it's like literally right in front of your face. Like, you know, you see one go through the door and the other come back out, and you're just like, well, how did that happen? And then like the most logical thing is like identical twins, but you don't think that. You're like, he's fucking teleported. And then you rewatch it and you see Alfred's actual twin disguised as his agent multiple times in other scenes where they're both sitting in the same room together with Robert Angier, and you're just like, how did I not notice this? Because the audience isn't looking. We want to be fooled. Like my Michael Caine, fooled, whatever. Anyway, this is just one of the best movies of all time. I love this twist. It's just so sick and so just gut-wrenching, because it just makes Robert Angier feel as though he's sacrificed everything for nothing. Coming in at number 3 on my list, we have Mulholland Drive. This movie is about a lady named Betty Elms who has just arrived in Hollywood to become an actor, and she comes across a woman in her apartment who has amnesia and can't remember her own identity. The two then set off across Hollywood to discover this woman's identity, all while Betty picks up more and more acting roles. As her career goes up, a seemingly unrelated director named Adam Kesher, his career plummets. This movie is just an entire mindfuck, and then it's not the kind of twist that you realise when you're watching it, but after you're done, you realise the twist. So about 2/3 of the way through, it is revealed that Betty is actually a woman named Diane, who is a struggling actor and has been in an affair with the amnesiac, who isn't really an amnesiac, but a high-profile actress named Camilla Rhodes. And she is engaged to Adam Kesher, this big hotshot director. Diane is in the middle of a deep depression, and she has been fantasizing about her dream life, such as being with Camilla, getting acting roles, watching Adam's career go down while hers goes up. And she does all this before killing herself. And it's not the kind of thing you pick up at first. You're just kind of like watching it, and the first 2 acts you're kind of following it, and then the 3rd act, everything is just completely different. You're like, what the hell's going on? And you sit there and you think about it, and you're like, okay, the first 2 acts of this movie are Diane's fantasy, and the final act is her reality. It's a really quite a sad and depressing movie about just how awful the world can be to you when you've done nothing wrong, and it makes you want to watch it again and pick up all the clues. This movie's just genius. It's so good. Coming in at number 2, for my 2nd favourite plot twist of all time, nearly number 1 actually, but it's kind of had to sit at number 2, just because the number 1 spot is just like probably my best memory. But anyway, we have Orphan, this classic little gem of a movie. To fill the void of their recent stillborn, Kate and John adopt Esther, a 9-year-old orphan, but Esther begins to exhibit some really strange behaviour which soon turns sinister. And this movie just goes places that I don't even know how it got made. Because after Esther's disgusting sexual advances towards her father, it's revealed that Esther is not a 9-year-old, but a 33-year-old psychopath with a bizarre form of dwarfism who poses as a child to attempt to seduce the father and kill off all the other family members so she can have her sexual liberations. This movie, man, it is so good. I love it. I love it so much, and it's just one of the most shocking and unexpected twists. Like, there's no way anyone could ever predict that. There is not a chance in hell that anyone would ever guess that. It's just off the walls and crazy, and I adore it. But coming in at number 1 on my list for best plot twists, absolute classic, shouldn't really be a surprise that it's number 1. And I actually didn't have this one spoiled for me, so that's a fucking miracle. It's Psycho. A woman named Marion Crane steals money from her employer and runs away to start a new life with her boyfriend. She stays the night in a motel run by the lonely Norman Bates, who cares for his mentally ill mother. Marion is then murdered by Norman's mother, and a detective hunts down the case. So, after an extremely long and unsettling build-up, the final 5 minutes of this film, we learn that Norman's mother is actually dead, and has been for years. When she got a boyfriend after her husband's death, Norman just freaked out and couldn't handle it and killed them both. Feeling horrible and ashamed of what he had done, he suffered a massive mental breakdown and assumed his mother's identity alongside his own. Norman lived in the illusion that his mother was still alive, and whenever the secret of what happened had a slight chance of being exposed, the mother personality took over his body and killed people. Now, this is a movie and a twist that has been replicated on several occasions. I'm not going to name them because that would be a spoiler, but there's a lot of movies that talk about dissociative identity disorder and use that as a twist ending. None of them have even come close just to the sheer and utter just gaping like a dickhead factor of this. I can't believe I didn't have this one spoiled. I remember very, very vividly watching this for the first time. It just... nothing has ever topped this, and I doubt that it ever will. This is just my favourite twist of all time. It probably always will be. It just opened my eyes up to more movies and just made me just want to watch different things. It's one of the most impactful movies I've ever seen. I love it. I love every second of it. And the final reveal is just bonkers. So that is my list on my top 10 favourite plot twists of all time. Let me know what yours are down in the comments. And I'll see you all later. Bye.